Nothing, and I mean nothing, beats eating an original Maxwell Street Polish sandwich from Chicago, or two of them bad boys, or a pork chop sandwich with cheese and fresh cut French fries at 3:30 in the morning. I think the special ingredient is the grease. It mixes with meat, cheese, marijuana and alcohol to form the perfect late night combo, but be careful because buying a sandwich in Chicago late at night may cost you your life. No Limit Kyro was served a knuckle sandwich at McDonald's before the dining area closed. A lot of McDonald's, like other national corporations, stay open late night, but they close the dining area after a certain time, with only the drive-through option left for customers. Original Maxwell Street Express locations are in the hood. Most are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, including holidays, even Christmas, and there is no drive-through option, making them much more dangerous. 2 Chicago police officers were shot while getting food while on break during their shift around 3:30 a.m., Friday, March 4, 2022, in the parking lot of the original Maxwell Street at 3801 West Harrison Street. The restaurant is located just south of Garfield Park and south of I-290. Both officers were transported to Mount Sinai Hospital. The offender had ordered his food and was in line in front of one officer, Superintendent David Brown said. The offender reached in his pocket to pay for his order. A gun fell out of the offender's waistband. The officer noticed the gun falling out, but before they could take action, the offender grabbed the gun, picked it up and began immediately shooting at the officers. One of the wounded officers radioed, "I got shot in the head, I got shot in the head." Dropped an extended clip, right in front of me, picked it up, shot me, graze wound, in the right side of my head, and my partner was shot in the leg. The partner had been sitting in the squad car when the gunman fired at least 3 times into the car. Neither officer returned fire. The gunman, Kai Lon Harris Caldwell, ran off, but was spotted by an undercover officer who had heard the shots. He and other officers chased Caldwell through alleys and took him into custody in the 200 block of South Pulaski Road, about half a mile away. Luckily, the police officers survived, but others were not so lucky. This is the Cartoon News Network's feature presentation. The most dangerous place to eat in Chicago is not McDonald's, as we reveal 3 shocking stories about murders committed at modern-day original Maxwell Street Expresses, reminisce over the death of starter jackets, and explain Maxwell Street's connection to Chicago blues music.
Maxwell Street first appeared on a Chicago map in 1847. The street was named after Philip Maxwell, who lived from 1799 to 1859, an Army surgeon who went on to become the state treasurer of Illinois. The original Maxwell Street Market, centered at Maxwell and Halsted Streets, and stretching from Roosevelt Road to 16th Street, was an impromptu market established in the late 19th century by newly arrived Jewish residents from Eastern Europe. A Sunday-only affair, it was a precursor to the flea market scene in Chicago. Maxwell Street Market was officially recognized by the city of Chicago in October 1912. Many fledgling entrepreneurs came to Maxwell Street to earn their livelihood. Peddlers sold goods from sidewalk stands and pushcarts, offering items from clothes and produce to cars and appliances. Shoppers could find anything and everything at the Maxwell Street Market. The market offered discount items to consumers and was an economic hub for enterprising people looking to get ahead. In an era of civil unrest and political change, Maxwell Street Market thrived as a multicultural phenomenon and was even called the Ellis Island of the Midwest. The streets were initially filled with klezmer music brought from Eastern Europe by Jewish immigrants. As the neighborhood changed, so did the music. When economic decline in the American South after World War I caused many Delta blues and jazz musicians, most notably Louis Armstrong, to migrate north to Chicago, where the first economically secure class willing to help them was the mostly Jewish merchants of the area around Maxwell Street, who, by that time, were able to rent or own store buildings. In the 1930s and 1940s, Maxwell Street became known as a place where many black musicians, who migrated to Chicago from the segregated South, could be heard by the greatest number of people. The musicians quickly realized that they needed amplifiers or electrical instruments in order to be heard over the barking vendors and noisy crowds. The merchants encouraged blues players to set up near their storefronts and provided them with electricity and extension cords to run the new high-tech instruments. That exciting sound, along with the chemistry between city musicians such as Big Bill Broonzy and new arrivals from the South, produced a new musical of genre, electrified urban blues, later coined Chicago blues. Chicago blues was different from the acoustic country blues played in the South. It was popularized by blues giants such as Muddy Waters, Little Walter, Bo Diddley, and Howlin' Wolf, and eventually evolved into rock and roll. One of the regular performers was the self-styled Maxwell Street Jimmy Davis, who played in the area for over 40 years. In the 1980s and early 90s, you could go to Maxwell Street Market, known at the time as Jewtown, like Chinatown, except with an obvious anti-Semitic connotation, to buy a pair of Jordans, a White Sox baseball hat, and a Bulls starter jacket. During this era, the original Maxwell Street hot dog stand, where you could buy one of their delicious Polish sandwiches, expanded, opening franchises throughout the city. In 1994, the Maxwell Street Market was moved by the city of Chicago to accommodate expansion of the University of Illinois at Chicago. It was relocated a few blocks east to Canal Street and renamed the new Maxwell Street Market. It was moved again to its current location on DePlain Street in fall 2008. In July 2022, a customer at a West Side Maxwell Street Express claimed he was disrespected by an employee before returning with a gun and killing the worker. Joseph Freeman got into an argument with the worker, Jose Adalid Silas Gonzalez, at the original Maxwell Street restaurant and said he'd come back with a gun and shoot up the place, prosecutors said. After Freeman made a gun gesture with his hand, an off-duty cop in line at the restaurant calmed Freeman down. The officer's friend walked Freeman back to his car and he left. But Freeman returned 20 minutes later with a gun. High-definition surveillance video at the restaurant shows his dumbass returning in the same car, wearing the same clothing, and lifting his t-shirt to partially cover his face. Freeman went up to the service window, reached inside with a handgun and fired 3 times, striking Gonzalez. Authorities responded to the restaurant in the 3800 block of West Harrison Street at the same location where the 2 police officers were shot around 3:30 a.m., which is about the same time in the morning when the officers were shot, and took Gonzalez, 30, to Mount Sinai Hospital where he died. Surveillance video shows Freeman driving away down the alley with his lights off. Police used their own surveillance cameras and automatic license plate readers to identify the car, which came back registered to Freeman. The day after the murder, Freeman messaged a friend of 20 years, who's an Illinois State Police trooper. Freeman, who was 47 years old at the time of the murder, allegedly said they had to talk in person, but the meeting never happened. Instead, the trooper was later interviewed by Chicago police, who showed him videos related to the murder. The trooper identified Freeman as the gunman in those videos. Freeman crashed out because he couldn't control his emotions. For some strange reason, he let his pride and ego lead him into a prison cell. Before getting locked up, Freeman lived in Bellwood with his wife and 16-year-old child and worked as a machine operator.
Jack S. Stevenson, 30, was murdered at a Maxwell Street Grill at 7445 South State Street in the early morning hours on May 11, 2024. Police said he got into an argument with another man who pulled out a gun and started shooting. Stevenson died from gunshot wounds to his chest and abdomen. The gunman drove away. Area 1 detectives took on the case and, using surveillance video, witness statements, and photo lineups, they identified 30-year-old Victor Bradford as the killer. CPD officers arrested Bradford, and prosecutors asked Judge William Fahey to keep Bradford in jail to protect the public. The judge agreed, citing multiple recent arrests Bradford picked up in Alabama, and Fahey's finding that Bradford appears to have impulse control issues and consistently arms himself with firearms. That statement is true of a lot of fake tough guys and wannabe thugs. Before we reveal our final crazy story from Maxwell Street, please smash the like button and subscribe to the Cartoon News Network. A lawsuit accusing Chicago police of false arrest was filed a day after murder charges were dropped against a mother and her 14-year-old son in the shooting of a man who attacked her at a Maxwell Street grill on the south side of the city. "Everything I worked hard for has been tarnished," Carlicia Hood said of her arrest at a news conference. The lawsuit claims Hood was falsely arrested and maliciously prosecuted, causing her to suffer emotional distress. Hood had been standing in line for food at a Maxwell Street Express at 11656 South Halstead Street on June 18, 2023, when she became involved in an argument with Jeremy Brown, 32, prosecutors said, when she was charged. Surveillance video showed Brown punching Hood repeatedly in the head before her 14-year-old son enters the restaurant and shoots Brown. Her son continued firing as Brown ran into a parking lot while being pursued by the teen and his mother, according to prosecutors. Hood was accused of urging her son to keep shooting Brown and to kill him. She also allegedly told her son to shoot Brown's girlfriend, who allegedly had been egging Brown on during the confrontation. Judge Barbara Dawkins set Hood's bail at $3 million, where Hood faced charges of first-degree murder and contributing to the delinquency of a minor. Hood's son was also charged with murder in juvenile court, as well as weapons violations. Prosecutors later announced they were dropping the charges against Hood and her son, citing emerging evidence in the case. Prosecutors did not specify what that evidence was, but the announcement came days after a video, apparently recorded by a bystander, began circulating on social media. I guess the moral of the story is that people should not argue with drunk, ignorant morons waiting in line for a Maxwell Street Polish, and they better hope there's a video when they must legally defend themselves from violent aggressors in order to be believed.